first of all, the how did you decide for that structure? And it was more of a pre-production kind of thing, or you were discovering the film as you edited?
Both. The structure came from the fact that probably whatever 10 years ago I've been thinking, I started thinking about I heard the story for the first time and just started thinking about it, and I knew I didn't want to make a straightforward documentary about Christine Chubbuck and her life and her death, and but I was somewhat obsessed with the fact that I didn't want to make the film as much as the story itself. It was both.
Oh.
It was the sensational aspect is horrifying, and you can't stop thinking about it once it gets in your head. But for me, it was also, well, why do I have such a problem with thinking about a straightforward version of this? And some of those answers are obvious. I don't want to, being a man exploiting a woman's, a depressed woman's death. But there's also much more complex things that come up, And so the structure came from, I made a film in 2014 called Actress, which was a documentary about an actor going through her life, but also performing for the camera the whole time, and not unlike Olmo. There's a lot of similarities too. And that was the pathway in, sort of. It was and so the structure, the initial idea of the structure, which it developed throughout the process, came with the film. Kate and I have been friends for many, many years. It came with the title of the film.
So she was in the project from the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was conceived of as, I will work with my friend Kate.
Oh, it wasn't X plays Christine.
No,
Okay.
Certainly not. And so in terms of the development of it that was. We laid out this basic idea of these reenactment scenes that were going to be failures, and you're going to be preparing for these failures of a film, like a failure of a film, and then meanwhile I knew that we'd have to discover all kinds of things, including like how we'd end the film, if we'd actually find anything that would be documentary journalistic interest, of documentary journalism interest. And so we sort of, the way I like to think of it is we created this kind of like contraption wherein we discovered sort of.
Okay.
I don't know.
And I mean, it's not that usual for an actress to have, I imagine, to have so much time to research for one character.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And what was the extent of the real research that you did off camera and the research you did on camera?
Sure. Yeah, I've never had that luxury of time when actually preparing for a role, but basically, Robert asked me not to do very much research before I arrived in Florida because he wanted to document, as much as he could of that. But even if I had done all of the research that I could before getting on the ground in Sarasota, it would have taken me like a half an hour. There's just such a paucity of information available about Christine Chubbuck on the internet or anywhere. But, when Robert explained the conceit of the film to me and that I would be preparing for a narrative film that is non-existent, that's when I sort of realized how I would like find my footing in Kate Plays Christine, in the movie that you see, because I don't really like being documented, but if I'm preparing for something that doesn't exist, that means that I'm performing the entire time, and that's something that I feel comfortable with. In terms of like the actual preparation that you see, all of my investigation into the life of Christine Chubbuck is, that's a real interest. I am fascinated by her, but like those interviews were scheduled by our production office in New York, and in terms of my preparation as an actor, like that for me is typically a very private and internal process, but that's not interesting to look at. So
you'd just be reading.
Yeah, and actually there's a point in the film you say, well, if there wasn't a camera here, I wouldn't be doing this way.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that's
Robert,
important. Yeah, because it is, because
the
part of
movie
it
wears it on its sleeve. It exposes that fallacy. But yeah, typically it would be a much more it would be going on in my brain rather than physicalized in some way. But
I like that you. I mean, I like that you say it's like expose or where's the fallacy on the sleeve. But I don't think of it as that way. Exactly, I think it's like we're externalizing an internal process, which is what you're always doing in movies. Like that's that's the goal. You're trying to get the internal out to the world, right, or into some sort of visual sense. But it was important to not make that an escapist thing exclusively. Although I want you to be sucked into the process, and I want you to really believe that everything is working. I'm also the structure and the nature of the film is that you should be questioning everything that you're watching as well. And so when she turns and says, I don't really want to do this. This is not what I would be doing normally. I would be sitting in the corner reading rather than giving you a monologue, which is what you asked me to do. Right. So it's super important to include that because that opens it up and doesn't make it simply like a procedural thing.
In the film, there is supposed to be a failure on my part to be able to capture the character of Christine Chubbuck for this narrative film. So when I go to a thrift store to buy teddy bears to fill the room up with, and in my mind I'm like, this would never work for me, this wouldn't help me at all. That's kind of fine. Yeah.
And that's a vulnerability that is very interesting because actually you have to play Christine in two ways. There is the film inside the film, which is very over the top, artificial, and soap opera-ish. And the role of Kate developing Christine. Did you consciously made a decision to play yourself in different ways in those two?
Well, the way, those scenes are the reenactment scenes are intentionally bad because we wanted to sort of unpack the emptiness of that, of
attempting to tell
her story. Not that anyone else, shouldn't try to do that. But there was always, I knew that I would be playing a version of myself that I had to be because I don't want to be. I want to expose myself through acting, not through exploiting my actual real life. So there's some of the things that I say in the movie are real and true thoughts that I've had, but you actually don't find out that much about me or see what I'm like when a camera.
So the title should be Kate plays Kate playing Christine.
There's things about that excite me as a filmmaker, and then excite me as like a friend of Kate. First of all, documentary filmmakers are always asking people to play versions of themselves. That is in every documentary. Sure. And the difference is when you, the viewer, know she's an actor, you charge everything she does with a different level of awareness. Because you know that she's an artist, she's a filmmaker herself, and that therefore she must be performing. And so the fact that you feel a sense of the desperation and the depth that she goes through to try to understand this role, and you get hopefully sucked into that in a narrative sense. That's a testament to the performance. That's a testament to the power of it. But at the same time, that feeling, although enacted, although in control from an artist, is also real as much as it is anything, because we were desperate, we were lost, and we were trying to figure out what the movie was, and we were questioning each other the whole time.
But there's this moment at the end that I found myself very fascinated by it, because I followed the process during the film, and that sometimes when you do the scene badly, I say, oh my God, no, this is not going well. And she doesn't really look like her, she doesn't, well. And then at the end, when you were reenacting the actual, suicide, first of all, I couldn't see Kate anymore.
That's amazing.
That is amazing, because I couldn't actually, even physically, I couldn't see your face there anymore. And an interesting thing happened because you were presented to the audience before the real Christine. When I actually saw her moving and talking, it's kind of like what's Kate looks like more like the real Christine than Christine herself.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's profound. I mean, that's the kind of...
Yeah, I'm a very profound guy.
Yeah. No, profound response, because like that's I mean, because that kind of, you know, I don't think we're not. I just love that response, because it's like, I don't think we could have possibly believed that, because some people say the opposite. Some people say when the lightning strikes on the beach, you know, Christine's leaving the film for good, and she's gone, and everything that you see forward is Kate. And I buy that response too. And to me, what that stuff, all those questions are, they have to conjure what attracted us to the story and what is the nature of the story, which is that suicide is an empty, horrible thing, especially when it's done like this. And that horrible, empty feeling is something very difficult to put on screen. And it's important. And it's important. And it's important to think about what depression actually feels like.
Yeah.
And what people actually feel like when they're desperate. And to me, the Hall of Mirrors aspect, if it's just a trick to get you to wonder, like, oh, is this real or not? Is it?
Right.
But if it can put something else there, if it can make us look into the black hole a little bit of you know, of depression, of emptiness, you know, like, then that's beneficial. So like, to me, that's the interpretation of like where we are with the performance and stuff, and how it takes you in a certain direction or not. That's all about hopefully conjuring something deeper.
Decision not to look for the tape. I mean, even if it's out there. And it reminded me a lot of when in the Grizzly Man, when Herzog listens to the tape and said nobody should ever listen to this. Did you make that comparison yourself, or that, or it was just natural?
He's a hero, and that's an amazing moment in movie history, I think. And I think he's inimitable. Like I would never want to say on camera, we're not going to find the tape, because like we cannot see those.
Yeah,
images.
No, but I mean about the logic. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
The ethics.
Well, here's the thing. Like, yeah, that was never, seeing that tape was never a goal.
Good.
The thing that I mean, one thing when you imagine what the movie can be, you know, as you're thinking of it, I always like imagine, like, what if we just had someone say, open the safe and say, there it is, and shut the safe and lock it back or something. What effect would that have on screen? And that was the closest I wanted to get to the tape, because I think it's more important to imagine it as a thing that you can't see than it is to see it, obviously. And I would never show it.
To ask yourself the question why you would want to see it, and why does it bother you that it's unavailable to you?
Or why does it empower you that it's unavailable to you? Like
absolutely. Sorry.
No, which brings us to the final scene when you have that monologue. And by the way, that monologue, was it scripted beforehand, or it's all you? I mean, I imagine that it's the logic of it is structured because it ties up the film.
Sure.
But was it improvised?
It was discussed beforehand. Robert sent me a draft of what he thought maybe would be a good, you know, a good version of it. Sean Williams, the cinematographer and co-collaborator of the film, sent me a version of what he thought would be, you know, potentially a good version. And then I wrote my own, but ultimately I didn't memorize anything. And what I say in the film, as far as I remember, is sort of, I get sort of stuck on this one idea, which was one thing that I had written, a part of a much longer thing. But I didn't want to have anything memorized, and so ultimately it's, you know, it's sort of taken from something that was written, but it's improvised.
Because it surprised me.
And I had no idea what was going to happen. So
Because you painted yourself, I thought, into a corner.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do the reenactment, the audience will be disappointed. If you do it, you're exploring the
Right.
death. So I was thinking, oh my God, there's no way
that's-
out of it.
Well, that's
But you found a way
I
out
love,
of it.
well, no, I love the painting.
But that's how we felt as
we
well.
felt totally pushed against the wall. But that's great because to me, if that's the narrative drive of the film, how the heck are they going to get out of this trap that they've set for themselves?
Which was on our mind every day.
That's
It
exactly
felt
how
like
we felt.
this thing hanging over our heads, and we couldn't leave Florida until we figured it out.
Yeah,
and
to
and
me-
at which point did you figure it out?
The end.
Like
Oh.
yeah, we like
was
well,
the
here's the
last-
thing, like we talked about it like 3 or 4 days before we started talking about, okay, maybe we can't really go through this in any sort of straightforward way at all.
Which I had never wanted to.
Yeah, you never wanted to. I didn't know the answer because I think like a documentary filmmaker, so I think I don't know when it's going to end, how the film's going to end, but we'll see. We'll get there. And by a certain point, we were just very sure that we couldn't go through with anything. But then at the same time, when the cameras are rolling, we told the guy who had to push the little squib thing, we don't know. She may not pull the trigger. She may pull, but that's on Kate. Like this is where we are. We've painted ourselves into this moment of Kate has to make this decision. And so although I gave direction, I said like maybe you could do it this way, or maybe you could. But by that point, anything I was saying, it was all like it's on you.
Okay.
And like for me that's if you're thinking about the tension is built on the painting yourself into a corner question, right? Like how are they going to work themselves out of it? Then you're actually dialed into what the film's about, which is it's really about storytelling. It's really about the difficulty of it, the difficulty in representing someone as an actor, the difficulty in being a filmmaker, trying to process it. If we could somehow take the tensions of storytelling and turn those into cinema tensions, like what's going to happen next, it's a victory,
So two final questions. You talked about tension. That was amazing in the film because when she's preparing to shoot herself, I found myself very tense, like I was really going to witness someone killing herself.
I said if we can make a phony, fake gunshot, and maybe we don't give this away actually. Like I said, probably I don't want to give away too much of the ending, but if we can make a phony thing have the resonance of the real thing, which is if we can make that phony gun feel real, we've done something.
Yeah, and
in the room, Sean and I mean, Sean, if he was here, he'd tell you, like, he's never been more tense shooting anything in his life. He's shot, 25 films or something, never been more on edge. And I, the same way, like, we had no idea what was going to happen, and I was sucked into the moment, too. So, like, the goal was to put those feelings on screen. And it was all Kate. I mean, it was, because by that point, it got to the point where we just, I would say that last scene is directed by Kate in a sense, because it's just like, here, what are you going to do? Like, she was back in the corner.
I think it's a shame that nobody would ever consider that a performance that should be awarded.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
because let's make them
consider that, because I think
it's a fantastic performance. I think it has many levels. So finally, there is this coincidence after 41 years that happened. 2 movies were made at the same time, and I wouldn't want to be at the other team, because after watching this film, I don't think there's a way anyone could watch the other film and think it's not exploitative. Not that they want it to be.
Sure.
But how was the experience of being at Sundance Film Festival, and there is this other film dealing with the same subject? Did you talk with the other filmmakers?
Yeah, we know them. I mean, we know them well.
Yeah, they're New York based as well. Yeah, I know.
And during the process, you knew each other were doing?
We were
Yeah.
shooting
We
nearly
talk-
simultaneously.
Yeah.
We never talked during the process, but both productions were aware of the other one. It's kind of lucky in a way for the both of us that they were operating simultaneously, because had one come out prior to the other, I do think it would have hurt the other one, but because Sundance was gracious enough to program them both, they're allowed to exist.
And I think there's some people who've had your response. There's some people who've had the opposite response.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people have said Christine is more of a critique of our film, and some people have said I like both equally, or I think that they're in conversation with each other. So I don't think it's the ending of the film was certainly never directed at another artist trying to tell the story. The ending of the film is directed
back at ourselves,
back at us, and at you, at the audience. Like this conversation that we've created for the 112 minutes that you're watching this movie, this is where this conversation's taken us together. It's not looking outside of us, you know. And
also, the questions that we ask in the movie could be applied to any number of narrative films, you know.
Or the concept, or documentary films,
film in general. You can always question the value.
Or you should be vigorously questioning the value of everything you're doing. But those guys were questioning the value of what they were doing too.
I imagine so. Yeah.
And Rebecca Hall's amazing, and yeah. So
I can't wait to see, because I mean I'm such a fan of her work.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like I'm blowing smoke or whatever, but I actually am and have been for a long time.
Do you feel protective towards Christine?
Yeah, I do.
But she does too.
I bet.
I bet she does too.
She is an intelligent, sensitive human being. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think